Chapter 6. Presenting research work. Another significant part of conducting research study is to communicate it, which is commonly known as the presentations. Presentations is very common in the research community, where the researcher need to make known to the targeted audience nearly everything of the research study. What kind of research work was carried out, how it was carried out, what kind of data or informations were acquired, how those data and results were interpreted, what are the findings, how do you conclude the finding. Sometimes at the end of the oral presentations, there will be Q&A section, where the audience will pose questions to the presenter, seeking for further informations or clarifications, debating on certain arguments, and the presenters are required to answer all the questions given by the audience. In fact, there are two modes of presentations. Technical writing is considered as a part of the presentation, which appear in the text, and the targeted audience will be the readers. There will also be oral presentations, where the presenters need to stand in front of the audience, prepare slides, giving presentations with the help of the slides, so that the informations are effectively delivered to the targeted audience. In these chapters, we're going to focus more on the oral presentations. Of course, some of the principles introduced may also be used in the technical writing. You know that presentations normally happen in the academic meetings, such as the conference paper, proposal defense, viva. Sometimes the researchers are required to present their progress during the progress meeting with the supervisory panels, or if the research grant is involved, where there are sponsors for the industry or certain institutions. Presentations may also be required to show the work progress of the research study. As a researcher, you shouldn't be afraid of the presentations. You will need to overcome yourself, as this is going to become your normal routine throughout your research study. Presentations require skills to effectively deliver the knowledge and information to the audience. Not only the information being delivered, there should be takeaway message that after the presentations, the audience can still remember. If possible, you would like to have the readers to have something to think of after the presentations. Good presentations tells a story. It is the story of your research work, so that it is easier to remember. When you tell story, you need to make sure all the essential parts are being effectively delivered, as every single part of them are interrelated. Any missing link between those parts will make the stories to be incomplete or distracted. Next, what kind of story that you need to tell regarding your research work? These are the three questions that at least you need to answer. What is the questions being asked and why it is important? This is to establish the rationale and the purpose of the research work. Make known to the audience the significance of the research work, why the particular methodological approach chosen, and how was it successful. This one is regarding how you carry out your research work, what kind of methodological approach was used, why do you use that, and how it was carried out. Next, what discoveries were made, and how has the discipline been advanced through this study. This one is related to the findings of the research work as well as the contributions to the pool of knowledge, and also the projections of what is coming upon achievement of the research purpose. These are several recommendations for the presentation. Before that, you should know that as a researcher or as a postgraduate student, presentations is nearly inevitable. It's going to become a common part of your research study. Therefore, you shouldn't be afraid of the presentation. You will have to overcome it, learn the relevant presentation skill in order to improve the effectiveness of delivering information to the audience and to improve the quality of information and message to be given to the audience. It is totally understandable if you feel nervous speaking in front of the audience, as you may not have much experience doing so. You may also feel nervous doing presentations using the language other than your mother tongue, especially the non-native English speaker who need to give presentations in English. You shouldn't be worried too much about the presentations. You should focus on how you can overcome it. Get more practice, overcome your nervous, and try your best to have the significant informations delivered to the audience. Let us come back to the recommendations for the presentations. Get to the presentation room early and test the technology. This is to overcome your nervous, that you need to be familiar with the rooms, have an idea how big is the room, what is the layout of the room, where do you expect your audience to sit, if there are examiners involved, where do you anticipate them to sit in the room, are you comfortable with the space, where are the screens, where do you intend to stand in front of the audience. It is depending on the size of the room as well as the existence of the mic system for you to decide whether you need to louden your voice. You will need to also test the technology, especially dealing with the PowerPoint slide and the screen, whether the computer is provided or you need to bring a computer for your own. How do you get your PowerPoint slide to be presented on the screen? Any sound system required, as well as the lighting systems. It will be depending on your needs, and you have to simulate and make sure everything would run smoothly before you start the presentations. Next, you should keep your presentation simple, especially for your PowerPoint presentation slides. You should get rid of the complex animations, large blocks of text, and complicated graphics. You need to know the purpose of the presentations. The ultimate goal here is to ensure the information is effectively delivered to the reader, as well as to portray your professional image in front of the audience. Complex animations may disrupt the concentrations of the audience. Sometimes it will also affect your smoothness of the presentations. Complicated graphics should also be avoided. This is mainly due to the limited time the audience is being exposed to each slide. The audience may not be able to quickly look into every single details of those graphics, and this will disturb their concentrations to whatever you are going to say in front of the audience. Personally, in my own presentation slides, I remove all the animations and the sound effects. I find it quite disturbing. It would disturb my pace of presentations, and I don't see the meaningfulness of having those incorporated in my presentation slides. I want to draw full attention of the audience to the areas that I would like them to focus on. Therefore, animations and complex graphics, as well as very catchy background, normally will not appear in my presentation slides. Talking about background, normally I choose the simple background. There are two possibilities. If I are aware that my presentations is going to be conducted on a white screen, that means my background will be more towards the light color. If I are aware that my presentations is going to be conducted on some digital devices, such as a large TV screen, which by nature the background color will be black, therefore I should use dark color as my background. The contrast between the text and the background is very important. If I use light color background, the word that I choose normally is in black color. If I use dark color background, I will use white color as the text. I see contrast between the text and the background is much more significant than a nice looking background that compromises the contrast. I would like the readers to be able to read every single text in the screen without having to guess what words that overlay with some spot of the background where the contrast is not that clear. And then normally I will choose the background to be as simple as possible, which shouldn't be too fancy in terms of the graphic. In the case that I would like some graphic in the background, those graphics should not take a significant portions of my background, and it should avoid the regions where normally I will have text. Definitely I will not have the graphic of the background at the center of my screen. Most likely it's going to be at the bottom corners of my screen, somewhere here. This is to minimize the chances that my text overlay with certain spots that can affect its contrastness with the background. As you can see from my presentation slides, for the lectures that I have given, normally I choose this most basic background, which is white color entirely. That gives me the maximum and the extreme conditions of the contrast without any unnecessary distractions to the audience. Next, you will need to structure the ideas, facts, and data in logical, convincing story. You need to show their connections and to progressively construct the understandings of the audience. You will need to properly plan the sequence of the data or informations being discharged to the audience. This is so that the audience is able to acquire the heads and tails of your presentations without requiring to further organizing the informations in their minds. Everything should be just nicely arranged for the readers to assist them to comprehend your presentations. Another one is that you should not just read the content. This normally happens among the students. Reading the contents of the PowerPoint slide to the audience is something which is very ineffective. The audience can read on their own. It is as if you are not well prepared, or either you not really bother whether the audience actually understands your presentations or not. You know that a significant part of the presentation is to make the readers to understand. There is always limitations with the text. No matter how much information or no matter how good is the sentence structures in your PowerPoint slide, there will be limitations. You cannot guarantee 100% understandings of the audience, especially when the audience is being exposed to that particular slide within a very short period of time. Most likely is going to be there for less than 30 seconds. Imagine that you are required to read all the text, comprehend the meaning of the content, finding the heads and tails, not only within the slides, also to identify their positions within the entire presentations, finding the purpose of those informations, how it can complement your content in the presentations. You do all this within 30 seconds. And you are being first time introduced with this kind of informations. This is rather challenging to the reader, and the next thing you're going to see is that the readers lose interest with your presentations, and most likely they're going to be disengaged with your presentations. If you just read the text, as an audience I will not expect more. I don't see the things behind the text. I only see somebody reading in front of me. I should just wait until the presentation is over, or if I am obligated to do some assessment to the presentations, I will try my best to read through those slides, create my own story, sorting the information myself, seeking for the heads and tails, and then make my own judgment in terms of the quality of presentations, as well as the level of comprehensions of the topics by the presenters. You should think about the audience, or if the audience is your examiner, you have to think about their response before you decided yourself to read all the contents in all your presentation slides throughout your presentations without having any meaningful background informations given to the audience. Next, you need to be consistent and having comfortable pace. Your pace should be consistent and shouldn't be too fast or too slow. If your pace is too slow, the audience are easily bored. But if your pace is too fast, the audience will need to pay extra attention in order to acquire and to understand all the information that you have presented. Your purpose is not to prove your fluency or speaking. Even you can speak the good English in a very fast way, you should refrain yourself to a pace that generally accepted by audience. Give them rooms and times to think about the information that you have presented, as they will need to do some sorting, organizations, comprehending for the information that you have presented to them. Another thing is, your pace shouldn't be too fast, as when you do the presentations, your head is thinking about the next point to be delivered to the audience. That means you are running two processors at a time. One is speaking in front of the audience, another one is thinking on what's going to come next to be presented to the audience. You will need to find a balance in between the pace of your thinking as well as the pace of the presentations. Your thinking should always be faster than your presentation, so that your presentations is uninterrupted throughout the entire section. This is the disadvantage. When you speak too fast, you will see a lot of pause when you need to stop once a while to think about the next point. A consistent pace would be comfortable for the audience after they have adapted with your pace. You need to be mindful of the non-verbal skill also, which include the eye contact, the gesture, and you should vary the voices for emphasis. You should always have the eye contacts with the audience, zooming in and out every now and then between certain specific group of audience and all the audience within the room. You should use good gesture, demonstrate confidence and professional image, and try to avoid those unnecessary and distracting gestures. Sometimes you need to put some emphasis on certain points. This you need to vary your voice to draw the attentions of the audience. Next, you should just use the relevant and necessary graphic only. Those which is not relevant, which you find the graphic is beautiful, you don't have to put them in your PowerPoint slides. as it is not necessary. Even you put it there, there won't be any significant contributions. It doesn't serve or it doesn't provide any added value to the comprehensions of the audience. Sometimes if you expect your presentation is going to be long, you will need to provide an outline for the audience to have an idea of the general structures of your presentations. This is to guide their comprehensions, knowing which stage they are in during your presentations and not to get themselves lost. And you might need to discuss the meaning of the result clearly. Showing a result is one thing. If the audience cannot find the heads and tail, those results are only numbers. It doesn't transform into anything meaningful to the audience. Therefore, you will have to extract the meanings of the result, clearly indicate your interpretations of those results, so that the audience can interpret them as you intended them to. And then, lastly, you need to reinforce the key point in the concluding slides. You do not expect the audience to be able to memorize every single point that you have given throughout the entire presentations. There should be some takeaway key points, which at least you would like the audience to remember after the presentations has ended. Therefore, you will need to reinforce the key points in the concluding slides.